Hillary Clinton has already got a plan to lower prescription drug costs. In fact, it was one of the first pieces of her agenda that she rolled out. She is going to put out a new proposal specifically aimed at stopping, quote, unjustified price spikes on pharmaceuticals. As president, Clinton would create a task force of regulators with the power to decide whether price increases on old essential medicines and devices were reasonable given product improvements and the amount of competition in the market. If not, the task force would have the power to mete out punishment to the companies that were trying to profiteer, potentially with fines. So, we've spoken about this repeatedly on this show. When our government was originally constructed, it was designed to be a minimal government. The bulk of the powers invested in any type of regulatory in any type of body at all were the states and the individual. The federal government had very few powers, and therefore it was constructed in a way that only required the work of what needed to be done constitutionally. Well, as our government has expanded, Congress has recognized that it can no longer regulate and monitor everything that it wants to regulate and monitor. Now, never mind the fact that most of what they regulate and monitor is completely unconstitutional and they have no right to be involved in it in any way. But they still do it. But because of the way things are orchestrated, it was never designed to be this behemoth that it's become. And so in order to make it was designed where if the federal government wanted to pass a law, make something legal or illegal under the Constitution, it would have to write the law, and the law would go before the Congress, and the Congress would vote on it, and then it would go to the Senate, and the Senate would vote on it, and then it would go to the president, and he would sign it. And you would have all of the penalties and everything and fines and everything all rolled up inside of that piece of legislation. And very little of that would happen at the federal level because the feds are in charge of almost nothing, or should be under our Constitution. But since they decided to take over more and more responsibility outside of the constitutional purview, it required extra people to be involved. Now, originally, these extra people were designed to be experts in specific fields because Congress knew, for example, that it didn't know everything about agriculture and that it would be unreasonable for congressmen to be passing laws about agriculture when most of them didn't know anything about it. Now, you might say to yourself, well, it would make more sense if they just didn't pass laws about stuff they didn't know about. But that would make too much sense. So what they did was they created the Department of Agriculture, and they staffed it with so-called experts on agriculture. So then they would pass a law that they thought was a good idea, and they would send it over to the Department of Agriculture to figure out what the actual rules needed to be and what the fines would be if you didn't comply with the rules. So now, instead of having very clear, very concrete, very decisive laws that are built around limited government, what you have are very loose, vague laws that they then turn over to these agencies for interpretation. The agencies of experts, I use in air quotes, then write up the regulation and decide what the fines and penalties will be for breaking such rules and regulations. What Hillary Clinton is suggesting is, in order to keep drug prices low, what we will do is we will go out and we will find people and companies that we feel like are exploiting the consumer, and we will punish them. Now, no, we won't punish them. Not like Congress will punish them or the president will punish them. No. We'll just turn that over to the agency. Now, you say to yourself, well, what about oversight? I don't elect people who work in agencies. I elect my congressmen and my senators and my president. I don't have anything to do with people who work in the agency. What recourse do I have when these agencies become out of control and begin to infringe on my liberty? The answer is none. You have none. Suck it up. Your best bet is to get big enough in your company that you can then pump money into Washington so that you could get those agencies to write favorable legislation for you specifically, your industry specifically, that will protect you. so that you can continue to operate. And if you're really good at it and if you spend enough money, they'll write regulation that will make it harder for your competition to enter the market or to compete with you. This is how Washington works now. Guys like Bernie Sanders, Hillary Clinton, Donald Trump, they all talk about wanting to get money out of politics, but it's never going to happen because the only way that you can protect yourself as a company these days is to pump millions, if not billions of dollars into Washington. That's the way the machine works. You grease the right palms, you endorse the right campaigns, you give money to both sides. Why do you think Donald Trump was always giving to Democrats? You know what he gave to Democrats and Republicans equally? He gives to everybody. He doesn't care. He's an indiscriminate offender. All he cares about is when he picks up the phone, as he so clearly and eloquently said, when I call them, they pick up the phone and answer, and they do what I want. That's the way government works today. It works that way because Congress has greatly exceeded its authority under the Constitution. We could be dealing with this still at the state and local level, but at least it's state and local. At the federal level, it's uncontrollable. It's a whole nother level of detachment away from you and your community. So Hillary Clinton's, knowing all of that and recognizing all of that, Hillary Clinton's grand plan,
It's bold.
yeah, is to put all of their faith and all of their trust and all of her authority into an unelected group of bureaucrats who will then make decisions as to whether price increases on old essential medications are reasonable. Now, those are three words in there that are incredibly subjective. What is an old medication? More than 10 years old? What is essential? To a person who needs the medication, all medication is essential. What's a reasonable increase in price? Well, it doesn't even have to be a price increase. It could just be like, oh, you know what? You don't have enough competition in this industry because you hold a patent on this particular technology, on this particular drug. We don't feel like you should be charging as much as you're charging, and there's no competition. So you know what we're going to do? We're just going to fine you. It's going to be a whole nother way for the government to increase its tax dollars, to increase its take. I'll tell you a story. You won't believe it when I tell it to you. My father-in-law used to work for a gas refinery. I don't think you'll care if I tell the story because he's told it to me openly and he doesn't work there anymore, so what are they going to do to him? He used to work for a gas refinery. He's a chief financial officer. This is what the, EPA. This is what the EPA did to him and to their gas refinery. You wonder why gas is so expensive. They haven't built a new refinery since the 70s. This is why. One year, the EPA just decided that they were going to change the rules on classifications on how things had to be classified in terms of chemicals. And they made it retroactive to 5 years before. So they said, okay, new regulations are in place and we're making it retroactive to 5 years ago. And they said, then they went to my father-in-law's refinery and they said, because you weren't in compliance 5 years ago with the new regulation, you owe us a penalty. I'm not joking you. And he said, I couldn't believe it. And I talked with the lawyers and I said, yeah, but we were in compliance 5 years ago with the regulations 5 years ago. Didn't matter. It was just a way for the EPA to extort money out of the gas refinery. That stuff happens all the time. It's not an isolated incident. That's what these agencies do. They act with impunity. You don't think the same thing is going to happen in the pharmaceutical industry? You don't think the same thing happens already? Oh, no, we're going to have to see another study done on that. Oh, no. Well, your drug was in compliance, but now it's not in compliance, so we're going to need you to pay us a fine. Oh, we considered what you were charging reasonable last year, but this year you're completely out of whack, so you're going to have to pay a fine. Do you think that that's going to have a net benefit on lowering prescription drug prices or raising them? If you said you think they'll go lower, you're a moron. This is the kind of stuff that our government does. And this is the kind of bold new steps that Hillary Clinton wants to take in order to improve healthcare in America and lower prescription drug prices. You know what the number one thing you could do to lower prescription drugs? Get the government out of the business of regulating drugs. Just get them out of it.